The Wrecking Crew was released this year in 2026. It is, I believe, the second 2026 release that I've seen so far. And as a fan of Dave Bautista, I was really looking forward to this, but I hadn't heard anything about it. I went in with basically no knowledge, so I didn't really know what to expect. And in general, there are a lot of things about this that work really well, but I didn't necessarily enjoy it as I expected to. I thought I would really enjoy this. I don't think there's a Dave Bautista film that I haven't really thoroughly enjoyed, and I did like him in this. But the narrative itself, I just didn't find to be as engaging as I wanted. But it's not a bad film. This is directed by Angel Manuel Soto, written by Jonathan Tropper, with a cast including, of course, Dave Bautista, and we also have Jason Momoa, and they played James and Jonny. And I'll read the description from IMDb, as I think this explains the overarching concept without spoiling anything. I don't want to give away any more than this, as there is a strong element of unpredictability here, so I really don't want to spoil too much. But IMDb says, estranged half-brothers Jonny and James reunite after their father's mysterious death. As they search for the truth, buried secrets reveal a conspiracy threatening to tear their family apart. So obviously there is a strong mystery element there. I don't want to give away anything else about the specifics of what actually happens, but I will say it probably took me maybe half of the film, certainly a third, to really start caring about the narrative. And it's not that it was slow, it's not that it took that long to get anywhere. Things did happen before that point. I just wasn't really engaging with it. It took a bit of time for me to really care about it. And I think the main reason for that is because I never really ultimately cared about the narrative. I liked the characters more. I was more interested in the characters, and it took about that time for me to really emotionally connect with them, to feel like I had a somewhat decent understanding of their personalities, their relationships with each other. And that's not a criticism. It can sometimes take a bit of time to get to know the protagonist. That's not a problem. But the narrative, to me, was never overly engaging. I was curious enough. I did have questions for which I wanted answers, and that meant that I was interested enough in finding out bits of information. But I wouldn't say I was fully engaged with the specifics of the narrative. I wasn't really that interested in a lot of what happened. But it wasn't boring. I just wasn't really having any kind of emotional response to it. So the narrative for me wasn't as engaging or as strong as it could have been, but I also wouldn't say it's badly written. So it could be better, but it certainly wasn't boring. But as a concept, I would say overall, it was generally well executed, really great pacing, absolutely fantastic pacing. It got to the point quickly, we get to know the characters quickly, but as I said, it did take me a bit of time to emotionally connect with them and to develop an understanding of their personalities. The narrative itself was a little quicker than the rate at which I got to know the characters, but I never really fully engaged with it. So it kind of balances out. Everything else about the film is pretty fabulous. We have some wonderful visuals. We have great camera work. The lighting is brilliant. We have really fabulous editing, a great range of locations. That part of it is very engaging. So even when the narrative itself maybe wasn't the most fascinating to me, or I wasn't really fully bothered about what was developing on screen, the visuals were still fabulous. So that definitely works in the film's favour. It is meant to be a comedy thriller. And I'll be honest, if I'm in the mood for a comedy, I wouldn't watch this film. Yes, there are lighter moments, and there are aspects where I could say, yeah, maybe that could be a comedy element, but if you're looking for a comedy, I wouldn't say this is the best one to go with. It's more of a thriller with some comedic moments rather than being a solid comedy thriller. So I didn't really find it to be comedic, but that being said, I wasn't watching it with that in mind, so that wasn't really a disappointment. It's more of an observation. I also have to ask myself the question, though, while I thought it was an above-average film that I didn't quite love, would I have enjoyed it as much as I did had it not been for Dave Bautista? And I have to admit the answer to that would be no. I'm very willing to admit that at times, again, when the narrative maybe wasn't the most engaging, I did get a lot of joy out of watching Dave Bautista. All of the performances were great, but as I said, I do really like Dave Bautista. So that for me is, well, to be honest, it's the main reason why I wanted to watch the film. So yes, I'm willing to admit that I would have liked it a little bit less had it not been for Bautista, but I would still say that it's an above-average film that, in my opinion, just didn't quite meet its potential. That being said, I recommend it. The Wrecking Crew is a really decent film. The narrative for me could have been more interesting, more engaging, but the pacing is still great. The key plot points may not have been that fascinating, but again, I still cared enough about the story that I wanted answers to certain questions. The characters are great, but it did take me a bit of time to like them. The performances are great. Visually, it's fantastic. Ultimately, it all balances out as being, in my opinion, an above average film, and I'm happy to recommend it.